Hi, I'm Melissa Grogan, and today I want to talk about the phrase project with your diaphragm and why you will never hear me use that phrase. The reason why is because it's a rather dated phrase. It doesn't take into account the actual physiology of the diaphragm, and it doesn't take into account what we actually need to be doing when we're trying to achieve a healthy, full resonant sound. The diaphragm, the thoracic diaphragm, is a set of muscles that divide the body in half. It's dome-shaped in rest, and there's actually a great video on YouTube about this. It's called 3D diaphragm. I'll see if I can get a link to that attached to this, but do look it up. 3D diaphragm on YouTube. So this is my version of the video for right now. You get my hands. The diaphragm is domed this way in rest. And at the top of the diaphragm are the lungs. They rest on the diaphragm here, and they're connected through ligaments and tendons. So when we take an in-breath, the diaphragm drops down. It flattens, drops down, and it takes with it the spongy tissue of the lungs. Meanwhile, on an in-breath, we've got the ribs swinging up and out. And the lungs are also attached through ligaments and tendons to the inside of the intercostals, or the muscles of the ribs. So we have the ribs swinging up and out, and we have the diaphragm dropping down. And that makes the lungs expand and pull air in. The image I always get for the lungs doing this expansion is, do you know those little capsules that if you throw them in water, poof, you've got a dinosaur? They're a lot of fun. So it's like that. When the diaphragm drops down and the ribs swing up and out, all of a sudden, the lungs are very large and full of air. And then when the diaphragm floats up and the ribs float down and in, the lungs deflate. Inflate, deflate. Inflate, deflate. Now, I just did that movement with my torso, but so you could see it in the video, but you don't need to do that to take in a breath. The action happens deep inside the body, and it's important to be able to begin to sense that so that you don't have a lot of extra efforting whenever you're breathing. So what is it then that we're using whenever we are supporting our sound? Because there needs to be some effort somewhere. Where is it right to place it? Haha. So enter the transverse abdominis. The transverse abdominis is an actual core muscle. It is deep inside the body. There are layers of abdominal muscles, 4 of them. We've got the rectus abdominis, which runs vertically. We've got the external obliques, which run diagonally. We have the internal obliques, which again run diagonally. And then we have underneath all of that, we have the transverse abdominis. And those muscles striate horizontally across the abdominal sheath, all the way down to the pubic bone and up even to the xiphoid process. And I encourage you right now to draw on your own abdomen those horizontal lines. This is a muscle that we're getting to that's really deep inside of the body. And so sometimes it can be hard to sense that movement, and sometimes it can be hard to isolate that movement away from the other abdominal muscles. But that's what it is that we want to be able to do if we want to support our voice healthfully and with the most bang for our buck, for lack of a better word. What happens when we engage the transverse? It is the only abdominal muscle that when we engage it in, you might be able to see, it's going to bring my ribs out. It's the only abdominal muscle that will do that. It's also the only abdominal muscle that can only move going in towards the body. So that's one way that you'll know you have it, is because you'll feel your abdominal muscles move in. And this motion that I'm doing here with my hand is almost like there's a hinge. I've got the thumb here at the base of my xiphoid process, right where that little V cutaway is, and I'm pressing in, like a door. So when I pull the transverse in, I might think in and up towards the spine. That's one way to think about it. Another way to think about it is Because the muscles striate horizontally, when I contract the muscle in towards the spine, those muscle fibers are going to contract outwards. So it pushes against the ribs, and also it pushes against the diaphragm. The diaphragm, which has just been bringing in all of this breath. So try it with me. Place one hand on the lower 2/3 of the ribs and one hand on the belly, and bring the transverse in. Now, I'm making that look rather easy, and I want to assure you that it was not for me at all. It actually took me 3 solid years to be able to even come close to doing this action. In all honesty, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm a good teacher of this. I really had to figure out what worked and what didn't work. And I've never had anybody take longer than 2 weeks to be able to feel this action. So if you're having a hard time with it, I share that with you so that you can give yourself some compassion and a little bit of time. Be patient with yourself. I would also encourage you to consider that it's difficult, even though we're doing this during video, it's difficult to really have any big change of physiological action without somebody there, an expert there to help you. So all that to say, find a voice class. If you're in Austin, I offer a lot of them. If you're not, then seek them out. If you ever want any recommendations of where you might go to, let me know. I can help. I just want people to get the work. In the meantime, back to the work here. So one hand is on the lower 2/3 of the ribs and one hand is on the belly, palm about where the belly button is. So you want to be a little bit lower in the belly. And you're bringing the transverse in. Some people will feel this action very low in the transverse, lower down to where it is in the pelvic area. And some people will feel it in the center, and some people will feel it up high. It depends on each person as to where it is I suggest that you initiate from. But again, what we're looking for is that when we pull it in, it's going to bring the ribs out. That's the one that you want. So here's what's happening. The transverse engages in. When it engages in, what is just underneath the transverse is the inner diaphragmatic wall. Back to the diaphragm. So we have the diaphragm that's domed like this, and the outer diaphragmatic wall comes down just a little bit in front. And then layered right on top of that is the transverse abdominis. When the transverse abdominis pushes into the diaphragm, it creates a little bit more pressure. So the diaphragm drops down. I'm going to try to do this. This is the hand being the diaphragm. This is the hand being the external diaphragmatic wall. This is an in-breath. Then when the transverse engages in, it pushes against that diaphragm, which creates more pressure in the lungs, creates more air pressure. And air pressure is a very good thing in this case, because what it does is it allows for the resonation of those vibrations to carry further. It allows that to carry through. Resonance is the secret to power in the voice. And what we need is we need enough fuel. The fuel is the air, and we need the gas pedal. The gas pedal is the transverse. Meaning, what I mean by that is the gas pedal is something that we press on purpose. The transverse is what we want to press on purpose. Yes, it pushes against the diaphragm, but I don't want to try to do that action from the diaphragm. I'll just be frustrated for days. I want to engage the transverse to make that happen. I hope that that helps a little bit with understanding why it is that I will never use the phrase project with the diaphragm. One other thing actually on that is, why wouldn't I say project? Why do I instead say support? I don't want anybody to project on me ever. I feel like as humans, we do that enough. We don't need any more assistance by giving ourselves that cue, that instruction, project. I don't want to project on someone. I want to share. I want to send my sound so that people can hear. And really what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to support my own sound. Just as the floor right now underneath you is supporting you, and you can either accept that support or not. The transverse can give support to the diaphragm, to the torso, to the breath. Give it support so that it has enough oomph, enough gas, enough air, enough pressure so that the resonance is felt. And then we have power. Now, when I speak of power, I don't mean just being loud. I mean being responsive. I mean being full of meaning, being full of harmonics, being full of resonance. That's what I mean. So I can be very quiet and intimate. I don't have to be quite loud, but I could if I wanted to. So I don't want to project. I want to support my sound, support my sound. And I want to share with the people that I'm talking to. I want to send it. I want to actually reach them, but I don't want to project on them. Project with your diaphragm? Meh. Support your sound? Please, yes, often. Share your sound. Share your sound. Share your sound. Enjoy it being heard. I hope that was helpful, and I hope you'll look into other videos that I have. Have a great day.